we go.
Thank you, Don. Hey, everybody. I'm glad to be with you again. I've looked at the attendee list. I know a lot of folks, and there's also a lot of new folks. So welcome. We're glad to have you with us. I am going to share my screen while I just give you a quick little bit of background on me. I'm in my 18th year with LPA, and 17 of those years I have spent focused on the IBM Cognos platform. So I started out with ReportNet 1 and all the way up through the latest and greatest release, which is version 11.1.7, which has only been out for a few weeks. Now, there's an awful lot in 11.1.7. Indeed, more than I could even fit on this slide, full of enhancements. So I have a half an hour, and that includes question and answer time. So today is obviously not going to be an end-to-end view of 11.1.7. I did do a 1-hour webinar on these topics and did some demos in that. That webinar is available at lpa.com/resources. And we've got webinars out there actually on every release. Also, we have look, I have a slide on that. So lpa.com/resources, lots of different recordings for each release, in addition to some deep dives into things like dashboards and data modules. You don't have to register. You just go to the site, find the video you want, and you hit play. There's also an LPA Software Solutions YouTube channel. Now, because 11.1.7 has so much in it, and there's so much interest in it, as Don said, we put together this workshop. And so we have 2 sessions on the calendar right now. This will be the third and fourth time we will have delivered this workshop. You log into my environment, we go through some of the enhancements, and that takes about 2 hours to get through kind of the prepared components. Depends on questions and where we go, because it's very much an interactive workshop. And that there's about anywhere from a half an hour to an hour of looking at anything that's interesting to you during the workshop. So we'll look at all of the enhancements that we can that are of interest. We'll answer questions. The idea is to give you a real comfortable feeling for exactly what's contained in the 11.1.7 release. Now, why are we doing this with R7? It is the long-term support release for the 11.1 world. What that means is it's the last 11.1 release. The next big release of Cognos Analytics will take us out of 11.1 and drop us into, I think they're going to call it 11.2. I understand that there is some potential they'll call it a different number, but this is the release that's guaranteed to be supported for 2 full years. So this is sort of, if you're on an 11.1x and you're not on 11.1.7, this is the release to target in the short term. So you've got 2 full years of support for this release. So 3-hour sessions, one at 9, one at 2, lpa.com/events is where to go to register, and it is free. So today I'm going to focus on 2 of the enhancements. In addition to taking your questions, please enter them via the Q&A portion of the WebEx so that we can try to get to some of them at the end of my presentation here. The first one I'm going to focus on is data sets. And the reason I'm focusing on data sets is twofold. One, I think they're the unsung heroes of Cognos Analytics. And 2, they got quite a substantial enhancement in 11.1.7. A data set is effectively a report whose output is a table in the Cognos environment. Why is that an important thing? Well, it gives me the ability to effectively cache within Cognos an entire table of interesting information, which I can then turn around and use in a dashboard or in a report. In order to use a data set in a report, I would first have to become part of a data module. But if I wish, I can create a data set and immediately turn around and use that data set to source a dashboard. Now, the reason this is an important capability is, well, there's many. A couple of the more obvious ones maybe are they allow me to run and get the data out of my data sources once, however long that takes, might be a a half an hour might be 3 hours to actually pull all the data together and build this interesting table from all of the different data sources. I get to run that once, and then I use it as many times as people run reports and dashboards that leverage that data. So all of that time to build that information gets spent once, and not every time someone clicks run on a report or opens a dashboard. So it can really be a terrific caching mechanism that goes beyond simply caching a table. It combines data, because you're effectively using a report, right, which can query data from multiple sources. It pulls it together and drops it in as a table in your Cognos servers. And then I can read that, and it's really, really fast because it's local to Cognos. And there is a whole process in Cognos when you launch Cognos devoted to reading data sets, so that they're super, super snappy in terms of response. And that is also the second reason that you probably would be interested in a data set. When we use a dashboard, people are interested in waiting seconds, not minutes, for the dashboards to display interesting data. And many times our back-end systems are loaded. And our data, perhaps especially in systems that are transaction-oriented, are not really laid out well for reporting. They're really laid out well for transactions. So for a real fast dashboard, a data set to bring in the data, and by the way, you can schedule a data set to update every 20 minutes. So you could bring in new data every 20 minutes, which gives you kind of a quasi real-time look at your data, but still be reading a local table in your dashboards, so they're very snappy when they display. So just a couple of the reasons why I think data sets are one of the most important features in the Cognos Analytics world. Now, in this release in 11.1.7, IBM has enhanced the ability in data sets to use virtually everything you can do in a report. So prior releases gave you data sets, and they were still a very useful thing, but you didn't have all the control in a data set that you had when you were writing reports to be able to do multiple queries and joins across those queries and unions across those queries and calculations and so on. With 11.1.7, I have that complete array of functionality. And so that's what I'm going to show you. So I've logged into my 11.1.7 environment here. If this is the first time you've seen 11.1.7, you might notice a new color scheme. That's the new default color scheme for if you install 11.1.7 fresh. If you upgrade it, will keep your theme. New icons, a whole bunch of new help. There's an awful lot of good new stuff. I'm going to just navigate to a package so I can create a data set. So I'm going to go out to samples models. I'll use my old favorite Go Sales query, and I'll create a data set from it. You simply right-click on metadata. Could be a data module, could be a package, and you start creating your data set. Now, you could go very, very straightforward and simple and just drag data in from your package, right? So I could drag in product line, product type, and sales revenue, and I could run this data set, put it on a schedule. When it runs, it creates a table, and then I could point dashboards and reports to that table. So they're, again, super snappy as far as response goes. With this release, we have access to this navigation toolbar that would let me go to the queries world and add joins and unions, even write SQL if I need to pull in the data that I want for this local to Cognos table. I have access to some various options, which I've never had before. I have access to a property sheet, which is not something that I had in the previous releases. So an awful lot of what I think of as reporting is now available in a data set. In fact, I can copy a report into a data set. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go out to my content. I have a report here. This is a report that has an interesting report page that presents data about sales and returns. It's got 3 queries, 2 queries, one that gets me orders, one that gets returned. I join the orders to their returns and I get a result. And let's suppose this report represents the data I wish to put in one of these cached data set tables. Well, I can go up to the toolbar here and using the options, copy this report to my Windows clipboard. I can create a new data set, and then I can use that same feature and to copy report from clipboard. I'll paste it in. And now the whole query environment that I had, the two queries, the joins, I still have access to edit their contents. I can still make changes, but now it's a data set, you see. And then on the report page, the data set page, is where I would go to my result query, right, the result of my join, and add all of the interesting data that I would like in my table. And then I can save and load that data. So I'll save it. I'll just put it out into my content. And Cognos has saved my spec and is now reading the data from my data source, performing all the query manipulations and storing the resulting rows in a table. It's completed. And now if I wish, let me just close out of a few things. I could go into my content, use that data set and create a dashboard from it. And we'll come back to dashboards in the second part of my presentation here, because that's another big part of what I'd like to begin to show you today. I'm going to grab product and revenue and drop them on my canvas. And I'm going to get a scatter chart. I'm going to grab product line and drop it on my canvas. And then I'm going to click on camping equipment, and it's going to filter. Look how fast that is. That's the kind of speed you want in a dashboard. And one of the ways to achieve it, it's not the only way, but one of the ways to achieve it is with a data set. And now with 11.1.7, the data set tool has got so much functionality. It's almost nearly as functionally rich as a report. And that's really, excuse me, that's really great news from a data set perspective. So that was part one of what I wanted to show you in 11.1.7. Part two has to do with dashboards. So I'm going to go back to my presentation really quickly and talk to you about dashboards. A lot of changes to dashboards, far more than I can show you in the 10 minutes or so I have left for today's session. That's why this hands-on session on the 25th could be really useful to you, because you'll get to see them all. One of the big changes is this notion of drop zones in the visualizations. If you've been using dashboards heretofore, you know that to populate your visualization, you open a data slots panel, and then you drag data typically across the screen from the left side where the data lives to the right side where the fields are. With 11.1.7, you now have access to drop zones within the visualizations themselves, number one. And number two, you don't have to drag anymore from your data source over to your panel. The data slots in the fields panel are now searchable. You can just click in and it will show you what's available, and you can begin to type the column you wish, and then you can pick the column from your sources for your dashboard. So a much more efficient way to get data into your visualizations with these two enhancements. Another enhancement that you'll see is smart titles. Smart titles are automagic titles that get added to your visualizations. Prior to 11.1.7, if you wanted a title in your visualization, you had to go turn titles on and then type in your titles. And if you changed your visualizations, maybe it started out as product line by year and it turned into branch by year. Well, you would have to manually update your title to say branch by year when you made the change. Smart titles do all of that for you. They're an option. You can turn them off if they're not working for you. But you can also, they're on by default, as you'll see. So I'll show you smart titles in my demonstration today. And if there's time, I'm not even sure there will be today, but if there's time today, I will also show you the terrific enhancements that have been made in the world of conditional formatting in crosstabs and tables. And one thing I will just mention, because everybody gets excited about it, you can now see the sequel for the widgets on your dashboard. So if you've got a widget and it's running slowly and you wonder, I wonder what the SQL for that looks like, you can now see the SQL for the visualizations on your dashboard. So with that, I'm going to go back here, and here I am in my dashboard, and hey, I have a smart title, revenue by product. You see, I didn't type that title in. It showed up when I added this visualization by dragging data here from my source onto my canvas. If I select that widget and open my property sheet, down here under chart, the title type down here in the bottom right, smart title, that's the default. I can change it to no title, or I could change it to custom title, which means now I'm in charge of keeping it accurate. But if I leave it as smart title, and I go to my fields pane, and I want to switch from product to product line or product type, I could drag product type over to the data slot, but with the new enhancements, I wouldn't do that. I would click here and remove this column. Then I would click right here in the box, and from the listing, I would pick my new column. So this listing, right, is the, oops, I should have picked the product type, pardon me. Would have been a much more interesting demo if I had picked the right thing. There. So now, right, I'm filtering to the different product types. Yeah. So you see it changes as I go. So let me change this guy. I'm going to click out, click back in. And first I want to remove it. Then I'm going to click in. I'm going to do product type. And you see my smart title changed. And I'm going to change this guy back to product line. I'll remove them, and then I'll put in product line. Right. And you see, I have snappy response with my data set. I have smart titles with my setting turned on. And again, that's the default setting. Now, in terms of these drop zones, I'm going to create a new tab here. I'm going to actually add a different data set to work with so that I have some more interesting data to show you. And what I'm going to do is go to my visualizations, and I'm going to grab the column visualization. And you see how the column visualization now includes drop zones, color, bars, and length. It's the same drop zones that are over here in the fields pane, but they're right here in the visualization, which if you've been writing reports for as long as I have, it's where you expect them, right? You don't expect them to be all the way across the screen. So I can use them. You'll notice star next to length. What that means is that that is required before the visualization will display. No data in length, no visualization. You use that to your advantage, guys. So as soon as you get the visualization, these drop zones will disappear. So if you know you want to use the drop zones, what I would do is, for example, I would grab product line into color. I would drag region into bars, and I would drag revenue last into the starred drop zone here. And then I will get a visualization. Okay, so with a smart cut, as I said. So the visualizations, when you add them, let me just add another without regard for positioning here, will have visible drop zones. It is possible to get them back. I haven't figured out the magic combination that allows my drop zones to reappear. So I use them when the visualization is brand new, and I use the fields pane for any changes after that. But I have seen them reappear. I just haven't figured it out. I'm just being honest with you. But when they're brand new visualizations, they're super useful and easy to use, and they match what I expect as a developer in terms of how I would add data to a visualization. I would drop data into a slot, just like I would in a report. Let me look at my time. Looks like I have a couple more minutes where I can do one more demo for you in dashboards. It's a very exciting release. Let me go ahead and actually let me just create a new tab so I have some space. I'm going to add a visualization called a table. And those of you who've been using dashboards for a while know that tables and crosstabs included a way to do conditional formatting. And that has been completely changed in 11.1.7. Let me show you the deal. I'm going to grab product line, product type, revenue, and planned revenue, and I'm going to drag them into my visualization. And I would like to do some conditional formatting of my revenue column. Used to be, there was a data slot called color, and I would drag revenue into the color slot, and then I would have little handles that I could slide around to do conditional formatting. It was very rudimentary, very basic. That's gone. What's there now is far more robust. Go to your property sheet. For this chart, you'll notice a conditional color section has been added. And you'll notice the two measures that I have in this table visualization are listed. I want to conditionally format revenue, so I'll click it. And you'll see I get this add rule option. So I'm going to change my scale from rules about percents to rules about numbers, and then I'm going to add a rule. And I'm going to select a rule. If the number is less than, and I'm going to use 125 million. Oops, I got it. 125 million. Then I would like to color it red. Then I'm going to add another rule, and I'm going to say if it is greater than or equal to 125 million and less than 400 million, I'm going to color it yellow. And you can see those changes are happening. And then I'll just finish it out if it is greater than or equal to 400 million. Do you see how much more control I have than I did in previous releases? I now have the ability, right, to create rules, lots like I'm able to do in a report with conditional styles. And so far more robust and flexible than the conditional formatting that I had in previous releases to this new 11.1.7 release. And I look at the time, and I've already used almost all of the time that I had available to do this demonstration with you. Hopefully I've gotten you as excited as I am about this terrific 11.1.7 long-term supported release of Cognos Analytics. And if you are interested in getting your hands on it without having to install it yourself, I have another reminder about that that workshop that's coming up at the end of next week. But for now, unlike my usual want, where I squander all of my time and I have no time for questions, I've actually achieved some question time. So have there been any questions submitted?
There have, Rich. I've got a question on the data set usage and asking whether you can use data exploration against the data set.
You sure can. In fact, what I have found, to be honest, is that I get the best results out of the exploration tool when I use a data set versus pointing it at a star schema or at a package or data module against the transaction layout. It seems to me like the exploration tool is more able to ingest my pre-joined table and find insights. I seem to get insights faster without having to do quite as much work.
Great. So another question that we had is about upgrades. You know, have we had people that have actually upgraded, and you know what's that experience has been like?
So we have had a couple of folks upgrade, including LPA. We're up on 11.1.7 as well. I have done in-place upgrades, over-the-top upgrades, and I've also done uninstall reinstalls. I've had success with both. I will say that there's been some anecdotes posted online where folks have done in-place upgrades and have had some issues. You know, and digging below the surface there, what I found is they were upgrading from extremely old versions of Cognos. So if you're going to do an in-place upgrade and you're on 11.1x, So far, my experience says you'll be fine doing an in-place upgrade. If you're doing an in-place upgrade from 11.0, I might rethink that. I might consider this a good opportunity to do an install reinstall, just because I think the leap might be just a little too far for the software to hit.
Okay. And there was a question about Chrome usage. There have been some comments about Chrome with 11.1.7, and wondering what real issue there is, or if there is an issue, or what do you know about that?
So there was an issue. The issue was that both Chrome and Edge and a few other browsers have all adopted this open source project called Chromium. And the Chromium software recently upgraded right after 11.1.7 came out, in fact. And that latest release of Chromium, and therefore the latest release of Chrome, didn't work when you tried to launch a new report. When you tried to create a new report in 11.1.7 with the latest version of Chrome, it failed. It gave you a JavaScript error. That was reported to IBM. They recognized very quickly this was a big deal. They set about and created a fix for it. And so that fix is available on Fix Central. So if you're doing an 11.1.7 install on your own, or if I were to be lucky enough to be able to help you, if LPA was able to help you, we would get the install kit off of Fix Central, not off of Passport Advantage, because we want the one with this Chromium fix in it.
Another question that came in was on data sets and drill up and drill down like you would with DMR. Are you able to do that with data sets?
So a data set is ultimately a relational table. So the way that you can mimic drill up and drill down in a relational table in Cognos Analytics is via something called a navigation path. So I could add my data set to a dashboard, and in my dashboard, define the hierarchies that I would like to use for drill up and drill down, using the columns that are in my data set. If I would like to do that drill up and drill down in a bunch of dashboards that are based on the data set, then I wouldn't do it in a dashboard because that's private to the one dashboard. I'd then put the data set in a data module. I'd define the navigation paths, the drill up and drill downs in the data module, and then every dashboard I created from the data module would have those drill up and drill down. So you can do it, but because it's a relational table, not a OLAP, even if it comes from OLAP, it doesn't stay OLAP, it's relational. When it becomes a data set, you add in the hierarchies through the navigation path.
All right, one hopefully relatively quick question to finish up with was, has there been any change as far as 11.0.13 with this release of 11.1.7?
So 11.0.13 was the long-term support release for 11.0. So long-term support, or LTS, you'll see that all over the IBM websites. The long-term support releases are supported for 2 years. So they come out, Cognos does conformance and bug fixes for 2 years, and then the support window on those ends. 11.0.13's 2 years is up in 2021. So you've still got some time. You've got maybe something under 12 months yet for that release. So there's no, I guess, compelling from a support perspective reason to upgrade. There are an amazing array of compelling reasons to upgrade from an enhancement perspective. But it is true that 11.0.13 will hit an end of support date early next year. I think it's the end of April in that time frame. 11.1.7's 2 years just began, right? So we've got 2 full years of support on 11.1.7.
All right, thanks, Rich. I think that's all the questions we have here.
All right, great. Hey, thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the day. I appreciate your attention.
So, Rich, this is Don. Do you have one last slide to click to? And I
do. I'm just trying to get it to for some reason it fell apart. How's that? There it is. So, and thank you for the reminder, Don. There's our workshop. Let's stay tonight. We want to get to the point where you're teaching 1117 without everybody felt yourselves, please register at lpa.com/events. We'd love to have you. In terms of services that my BI team performs, I'm super proud of the team I have the privilege to lead. There's a whole bunch of things on the screen here that we do to help our customers succeed with Cognos Analytics, upgrades, health checks, and so on. So if you glance through this list and there are things here that you think could be helpful for you, we would love to earn your business or continue our relationship in helping you in that way on your Cognos Analytics journey. Don?